Yep, we good to go?
Great. Yep, you can.
All right. Kia ora and welcome back everyone to our listeners for this next analysis. And now we are going to analyze an important minor parties as such, but something we call as kingmaker parties. And we will be doing the next three editions. We'll be discussing parties like ACT, Green, and NZ First. And we are privileged to welcome back Shailesh and ask about his views for the common man. So, Shailesh, today now we'll be starting with the ACT party.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, that I consider them as kingmakers. What's your opinion about ACT?
Yeah, 100%. Welcome to all the listeners once again. I'm here to give my 2 cents of knowledge, which is in the elections is very, very vital for all the people. So thank you very much, Sheerali, for once again inviting me and talking about today is about ACT party policies. And ACT party policies are not your standard status quo or traditional policies. They have come up and emerged as one of the strongest political parties from a very 1 seat or 2 seats long time back to all of a sudden this year, this term, they have going to be one of the strongest coalition with whoever the partners are, but they will be the deciding coalition partner. So it really makes them more important, but also gives more people an options and opportunity to actually analyze their policies, because what are they offering different from the traditional political parties and why they have been liked by some of the people with their policies. So again, these are political parties. And again, as a democracy, it's always good to have emerging everyone to say their policies and talk about their visions, and ultimately they are all doing good for the country. But are they or are they not is for the voters to decide. I'm not going to decide on that, but I will definitely analyze, and I'm ready, Sheerali, for your questions with regard to the ACT policies that you think are very vital. And I think one of the vital for me is any political party is our basic requirements of as a normal man, as a common man, because we are analyzing all from a common man's point of view. And I also fall in one of those categories where everybody actually falls in one of those categories, because first of all, we are common men. And we need to look into everything that matters to us and to our colleagues and neighbors and everyone. So, and family, basically, overall. So, yeah, that's fine. I am ready to take your questions. So, please, Sheerali, go ahead and
We'll have some bite size. I call these bite size sessions. So, I will ask you just few questions, Shailesh. The first one of importance, which I believe is the democracy one, as you said. So what do you think is the ACT stance regarding the fundamental rights and their commitment to equal treatment regardless of race, religion, sexuality, or gender?
Yeah. No, they have been very much clear in their policies that they want everyone to be treated fairly, including the Maoris who have been specialized into our system or been called as indigenous or as per the treaty. Everybody has been given like a identity, basically. And what ACT wants is they want to remove all the identities, basically, in a way, and say that no, everybody is same, let's treat everybody equal. But when it comes to dynamics of individuals and cultural dynamics and diversity dynamics and ethnic dynamics, they still want to paint the brush with the same, ignoring the facts of those identities, which is going to be a little bit of challenge to change or reform, because we are set into a system where even though we are democratic, and even though that is democratic, is a big question mark, because their perception, their views of democracy is different, whereas the democracy that we have been implemented or followed in our country is a little bit different to the traditional way of democracy, which every world follows, basically. India comes from a very diverse, just to give you an analogy, India comes from a very diverse cultural and ethnic backgrounds people, and 1.4 billion people. It's quite big in population as well. Imagine and still they are called the largest democracy. Now it's a question mark. How can that be a largest democracy if acts policy come into picture saying that
Mhm.
no, everybody should be treated equally, there is no ethnic, there is no Maori, there is no cultural differences? Then it's a big question mark. How do you change that transformation from that one democracy aspect to another democracy aspect? And are there two ways of democracy looking, or
Mhm.
is democracy needs to be redefined? And this is something that all the voters needs to understand. So your identity is, you can't change and nobody can take it from you. Irrespective of whatever the system you put in, you still are what who you are, because you come from different parts of the world and then you migrate here and then you got to follow the rules here. So I think democracy has to be quite different in the world of when act comes or when acts want to portray about democracy. Traditionally, Labor, National, they also want everybody to be treated fairly, justifiably.
Mhm.
The question is treating fairly and justifiably without acknowledging the identities or the cultural differences or the race differences. That's a challenge. Because remember, we had about now we have got one district health board. We don't have 21 district health
Yep.
board. It's all combined into one health board. So that's what basically says that, okay, we don't need division of health boards of different nature. It's one health board, one policy, one format, one way of looking at things to all patients, right? That's what it meant. And so that less governance also. We don't need more interference of different policies and different political views or different views of running a district health board or a health board. So that's one thing was designed and changed by the current government, which also follows that what ACT wants to do is we want to make one system for everyone. But then also the current government doesn't wants to recognize that there is lots of issues with ethnic, lots of issues with Maori. So whether it is their health dynamics or whether their treatment dynamics or whether their requirements are quite different. And ultimately, who pays? We all pay for that one ethnic or two ethnics or all ethnics. We all pay for everyone. The question is, in a democracy, okay, how do you allow this to happen, or what do you allow to happen? Basically, that's a different views of different individuals. But ultimately, everybody wants to get treated with
Mhm.
fair system, with justifiable system. This is what people have to dwell into and see that, okay, acts policies wants to do that, but are they fair in terms of giving treatments or receiving treatments when it comes to ethnic backgrounds, when it comes to their dynamics of treatments? Basically, that's the question that everybody has to ask about themselves, that, okay, if I'm not considered as a Maori, Indian, Chinese, if I'm not considered that as my language, that's fine. But am I being treated with as per my treatment or as per my ethnic? And what is this basically? So that's a very detailed detail will be in the, I always say devil is always in the detail. We can paint a brush and say, I want to treat everyone equally, but then under the name of equally, what is actually in the detail, who gets first and who gets second, and why it's treated differently and why it's not? That's a question that is very, very critical going to be from
Yep.
acts policy. So it's going to be interesting to see. So with my analysis, I feel that, act still wants to give treatment fairly and everyone, but whether it will really happen in his way because of the tradition system that we have been following, how much time is he going to take changes to make those legislation changes? We have got lots of legislations and regulations in place already with the current system, with the current democratic view, put it this way. And is this democratic view going to be changed by act? Is the policies going to be needed lots of twigging and twisting and to make legally
Yep.
applicable in the health act, under the health act?
Yep.
That's what, because I think predominantly, if you look at during COVID, and if you ask me, the current government, they treated everyone equally, whether it was whatever. They were matters, lives were mattered to them.
Yep.
It doesn't matter whether you come from a Chinese, ethnic, Bamari, but now people didn't listen. Some of the groups didn't listen. Some of the ethnic didn't. Now that's a democracy, and that's a democracy they have accepted it, right? They did not try to force or do anything. But and if they feel someone felt it was forced, then that's not democracy. Again, it is debatable. But the
Yep.
goal is whether they were treated fairly, justifiably, equally, equitably or not, as per the race, as per the caste, as per the religion, as per the democracy. That's the
Yep.
important aspect. So
Well,
I will
I think that one of the cornerstones of democracy is the freedom to practice your own
absolutely,
religion, and be completely free of any holes as such. And
absolutely.
I think that have the, I'm not talking about the race as in the
Mm.
enjoying my identity, being proud of my identity, enjoying my culture, celebrating that my stuff. I think that's very, very personal and something very important for all the immigrants, for example, and even for the indigenous people. So that's going to be quite an
Mm.
interesting thing if they want to, like, do they want to focus on equality or equity? So that's something
Correct.
which
Yeah.
yeah, we will see how it goes on that.
And that's
Coming to
why
the,
just
yeah,
just to talk on that, you said very rightly equality and equity, and but I always say that human rights and human entitlement, we all get confused.
yeah,
What are our rights and what is our entitlement? They are all, we are all related to humans, the rights and
yeah,
entitlement. But this is where people get confused. Am I asking, am I fair in asking, or is it I'm entitled or I am not entitled? Is it my right or is it not my right?
yeah, rights and duties and entitlements,
Yeah.
absolutely. Now the economy is like this. We have been discussing a lot about cost of living, economy, and
Sure.
like ACT has been very vocal about cutting the government waste and
Hmm.
lowering the taxes and like other things. What one thing which stood out for me, Shalish, was their
Mhm.
stance on the climate change, and
Yeah.
that's just a thought, that they have mentioned that they plan to reduce the climate change initiatives, which is a global topic, and they
Yes.
talk about scrapping the zero carbon law and not giving any more those clean car discounts, which is something a common man would be looking for. So
Hmm.
those things seem to be something, very, very drastically different from the
Sure.
other policies. But in your opinion, what areas of government spending does ACT consider a wasteful, other than what we have discussed?
Yeah, see, I think wasteful act is again defined and redefined as a priority for every person. Like,
Hmm.
I always say it's very hard to say one man's food is another man's poison in my simple terms, if people
Hmm.
understand that. Because I may like to do something, but you may not like that what I am doing. And you may do something which I don't like, something that you
Yep.
are doing. But ultimately, it's not about your word against my word. It's about how we come together and actually make those transitions, make those our opinions, suggestions, our ideas come conceptualized for everyone. And we everyone, again, it's not 100% everyone. So I always say in my terms, when it comes, there is no measurement of 100% accuracy, but you try your best to make it maximum accuracy, just like the vaccines.
Yep.
Well, we wanted 100% result. Did we get? No. We wanted everybody to get 100% benefits. Did they get? No. So, but maximum they got. So everybody was happy that yes, we did the right thing by doing or by not doing. So that's what I look at it. And so when it comes to carbon emissions or reduction or wasteful spending, which most of the people think there is a wasteful spending or there's an excessive spending. Now, in my accounting terms and in my budgeting and in my cash flow that I always do, I always say that you budget and then you compare with your realities and actuals. And when you do your actuals with the budgeted, then you know where my budgeted was wrong or not. That's one aspect of looking at. But the other aspect and the key aspect is whether I had budgeted the key priorities or not, and whether that key priorities matters to everyone or not. And this is where we define and redefine about the wasteful spending.
Yep.
And so to me, wasteful spending, anybody can do. Like, for example, what is the need of the hour? So when people say that we don't need, this is a wasteful when you raise a minimum wage, or this is a wasteful when you are building roads or rail rings when there is a COVID, and when there is a calamity, when there is a natural disaster. We shouldn't be spending there, we shouldn't be spending there. See, this is dynamics. We budget something when we are good at everything. When everything is works around us, we make a budget to do extra spending on extra protection, on
Hmm.
extra resilience, and we invest those. Now, that's not wasteful. That's called thoughtful visions in future to adapt and accommodate everything that comes
Yep.
out. But then people think at that time, oh, you already had budgeted, but now the COVID has come, or now the climatic changes have come, so you should stop it. Now, when you stop it, then you are spending more money and it's more
Hmm.
wasteful.
Yep.
You have already spent, you have already done the transition of consultants, hiring, and everything, and you had budgeted and you had taken into account everything. So that's not a wasteful, but it needs to be continued if it's a good. But just because certain things came in between and you are stopping it, then that will never get completed, and that will be a wasteful spending at that time. You know,
True. True.
to me, wasteful spending is something that is not required for the country, or particular for example, a few years ago, there was a debate on we need a new flag. And then people started spending money on that, about 4 million, 5 million, whatever was spent on that. According to me, that's like I want something which is not required by the country, but because it's my way of looking at things, and I will make the people pay for it. That's a wasteful spending.
Yep. That's taxpayers' money gone down
The
the drain.
taxpayers' money gone down, basically. So I think there is a fine line between where do you consider wasteful and what do you consider wasteful not. In terms of reduction of emissions and everything, this is all related to when every political party has accepted the facts about the Greens policy and they have tried to accommodate them, thinking that it is required. So when you have got one party spending their agenda or telling their agenda to do it, but other political parties are saying, yeah, it is required, let's do
Yep.
it, then that's not a wasteful spending, but that's something that we agree, mostly everyone, and then has come into place. So there's a fine line again, and acts direction of saying that we will cut this and we will put that, we will do this and we will cut that, is just like juggling their priorities and
Hmm.
saying that this is not my priority, so I will cut it. But
Yep.
this is my priority, so I will put it. So,
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I
mm,
think ACT is emerging as one of the favored party for national. I did
yeah.
read about Luxon preferring them over NSET first.
Mm,
And I can see some of their policies regarding education going for the partnership system or health,
yeah.
housing,
Yeah.
climate response, infrastructure. They're all
Mm,
kind of aligned with that. But
yes.
just have one last question for you regarding the law and order.
Mm,
And because that is something, which is again a burning area. And again,
absolutely.
the news today, I have read about a couple of ram raid and stuff. So, what do you think is ACT's approach? How is it different from the other parties in terms of specific policies for achieving the balance of law and order?
Yes, that is very important. Law and order, and also another important is health, but we may not delve into that. But that's just to give a comparison of health and law and order. But let's talk about law and order.
Yep.
So labor, all of a sudden, the law and order became issue in the last couple of years when the ram raid started.
Yep.
Before that, nobody was talking about law and order. Okay. And then the gangs also was sucked into these ram raids, and
Yep.
then that 501 treaty with Australia that came into situation. So all of this came together and the law order became a hot topic for everyone.
Yes.
But it's very important, law and order, irrespective whether whatever reasons are, during the whole time, whether good time, bad time, every time, law and order has to be maintained, and safety of people, safety of businesses, safety of properties, safety of everything is a prime importance to protect and to to prosper, we need to protect everything, all of this. And
Yep.
to protect, we need this law and order very much good. So in terms of labor's policy of law and order, by they're saying that there were less implementation, less police force, less
Yep.
manpower, then less resources, then less authority given to them. So they passed on authorities. They gave them more responsibility, but they also passed on more authority. They also recruited more people. They also put lots of resources. Then they also gave lots of resources to the businesses to safeguard themselves. All these things they did was in the view of the surge of the issues and the crime that increased, right? But before it wasn't. Just like any issue, when COVID came, nobody knew, so lots of things were implemented immediately. And then they saw that in the future, when this happens, we have system in place. Now, exactly what the labor has followed that path, that, okay, we have noticed this, now let's do something about it, they're done. But what still the another party, particularly National, says that, no, you are soft on crime. Now, that's another debatable thing. Soft on crime and hard on crime, how do you define and what way you define? These are youngsters. Labor thinks that these are youngsters, they are guided by someone, so we need to crack down. Who are the guidance to these people? You can't just put a blanket saying that we will give you harsh punishments. But National is saying that we should be a little bit hard and we should put some policies in place to make sure that this doesn't get the consequences are being given to them, which at the moment they think the consequences are very minor.
Yep.
That's what the National says. But Act on the contrary says that they should not be, where these are young, these are minor, we understand. So they should not be brought back once they are put in the jail, and they should all be put in the prison. And for that, they have a policy. I think our memory, I heard that they, in my opinion, they said that we're going to spend about $1 billion to build more prisons. And what they want to do with that money is not just build the prisons, but actually give training to those kids, to those people before they come out or before they are let out to come back in the society, come back in the community. They need to develop skills, they need to develop training for them to do something when they come out, and not just come out after filling their terms of like prison term that we call it. So that's not the answer, what Act is saying. So that's why they want to spend money on that front in the crime. They want to spend, okay, this more police, more resources, more safety measures, all these things, rather than that they are more focusing on the people who are doing the crime should be put in the jail and until prison, and until they come out. Before they come out, they need to be get ready. So driver's license they should have all the skills to be in the community, which is a great thing. But
which I think is a good. I just hope it doesn't turn out to be wishful thinking and something concrete is done.
Again,
more like a rehab center, and for those people to merge back into the world in a positive way. So I think like some of their the policies which we have discussed are something which is important for the common person, but they do have some other three waters, immigration, welfare, Oranga Tamariki policies, which are like a for talk on some other day. But I think ACT is going to be one of the key parties to look out for in this election. With that note, I will stop on the ACT party, Shailesh. Any last comments you want to make?
Yeah, no, I just want to say that you made a good point, and for all the listeners, that there is a coalition looks like, as per the polling that currently goes on, National and ACT will form a government, or will have the maximum numbers to form a government. Whether they will or not, that will be decided on the 14th. We can't make a comment on that now, but yeah, there is a most likelihood that they might come together. Again, if they come together, then all the voters needs to understand the national's policy of charter schools, Labor's Act's policy of privatization of schools or partnership and collaboration with private institutions, organizations to run the schools. Again, that's a matter that the voters have to decide. Do we want to move from public to private? Is this the new norm? Is this a norm that you can accept in terms of your education, your kids' education, your family education, that the education system of New Zealand is going to be reformed into a different altogether? So are you ready for that? That's another thing of
Yeah.
matter. So I will, with that note, I want to just make a comment that, there are changes happening with the coalition or can happen with the coalition, but change, whether it's change for better or whether it is change to
Yep.
take backwards,
Yep.
that's the question that everybody needs to ask. With that, I leave up to the voters, leave up to the listeners to make their mind and make conscious voting rather than subconscious voting. Do your voting consciously, because these things, these policies do affect you, your family, your surroundings, your colleagues, your friends, and
Yep.
everyone. And that's not, you don't want to see anyone in a situation where you are like stuck into a government where you don't have any options or choices, basically.
Yep. So that's the reason we were conducting these series of
Hmm.
videos for the public to make informed decisions. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Shailesh. Thank you
Yes.
once again, and we'll meet soon once again and discuss the next party.
Yes. Thank you so much once again. And bye for now. Please vote, all the listeners. Thank you very much.